The dissolution of traditional group boundaries is the topic of today's video. Welcome to Radio Rebellion. Now, with traditional group boundaries, I mean first and foremost race, class, and ethnicity, okay? And in this episode, I want to shed light on the debate that different researchers had about this topic. And of course, I don't have time to cover the entire debate, but I will highlight some contributions. Shed light on some contributions. So let's start. Now, some researchers, they argue that traditional group boundaries, we cannot see the last word, but anyways, traditional group boundaries dissolve because of contact and social upward mobility. Now, other researchers, they do not say that traditional group boundaries become necessarily unimportant or that they dissolve, but according to this researcher, traditional group identities do not any longer inform identity politics as much as they did in the past, and traditional group identities are only relevant or more relevant nowadays for interest politics and less important for identity politics. All right. Then other positions again are of one researcher. He said that one researcher is of the opinion that over the last century, new diversities evolved and have been introduced as factors structuring the social fabric. Therefore, traditional group identities and group boundaries become less important as there are now new diversities also structuring the social sexual difference. So basically he claims traditional lines of diversity, race, gender, class, ethnicity, they're no longer the only forces or factors, whatever you want to say, structuring the social. But nowadays also sexual orientation and new differences that evolved basically are also structuring the social. So traditional group boundaries or traditional identities are no longer the only forces structuring the social, okay? And also because of this, the introduction of new diversities, also traditional group boundaries dissolve a little bit more. And also, obviously, because of processes of hybridization and synchronization and mixing and so on and so forth. And therefore he developed the concept of super diversity in order to describe these processes. Now there are another group of researchers, they developed concepts such as hybridization, creolization in order to describe similar processes of the mixing of cultural influences and the synchronization of cultural influences of people who are mixing with each other. And yeah, so let's stop here for now. Now something on the screen, okay? And summarize for a moment what I have just been saying. In summary, it can be said that most of the researchers I presented now and their takes on this topic, most of them argue in the direction of the dissolution of group boundaries, or they argue that group boundaries become less important in the 21st century, but it has to be added as an information that most of them they researched in Euro-American contexts, okay? And my take on this issue, I personally believe that traditional group identities will continue to be important and will continue to be the most relevant factor structuring the social also in 200 years. This is what I believe, and also in Euro-American context I believe, but a little bit less in Euro-American context. And even if many researchers argue that these forces become unimportant, according to me, this is also not completely correct. But I think on the surface they maybe do not play such a role anymore, but they continue these forces continue to operate beyond the surface and also in Euro-American contexts. But in Euro-American context, these forces will only then be important or become important again in situations of unequal power distributions between individuals or groups of people. And of course, in this situation also it depends on the specifics of the situation and the content of the interaction. Okay, so, but this is what I believe more or less, and this is also my prediction for the future, and this is my take on that. So I do not really believe that they become unimportant, the traditional group boundaries. My perspective or my take on that is that they just become less important, and less important just on the surface, but will continue to be important beyond the surface. So I hope this was interesting. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.